going on, everyone? James Numbers here, and welcome back to another YouTube video. And in this episode, I am going to be reading over and talking about my reaction to what happened to Iryna Zarutska on August 22nd, 2025. Now, I know this has been over a month since her murder happened, and I didn't really report on it at the time that she was murdered, and I do apologize. I just found out about this I just read a little more about this case, and I was like, whoa, it's been insane. And in this episode, I will be reading about what happened to Iryna Zarutska, as well as showing you some videos as to what happened, along with what the responses have been to her murders since that time. And since it has been like over a month since her death, I'm sure a lot has come out since then. So, with that being said, I am going to be pulling up the Wikipedia article right now. Oh, hang on. And here we go. The killing of Iryna Zarutska. The killing of Iryna Zarutska occurred on August 22nd, 2025 at the East-West Boulevard station on the Lynx Blue Line in Charlotte, North Carolina, United States. Iryna Zarutska, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee who had fled her country because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, was stabbed from behind 3 times while seated on the train. The suspected assailant, DeCarlos Brown Jr., was arrested upon exiting the train and charged with first-degree murder. The killing drew international coverage for Zarutska's status as a refugee seeking safety in the United States, and prompting statements from public figures including Mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, V. Lyles, Governor of North Carolina, Josh Stein, and President of the United States, Donald Trump. Footage of the killing sparked outrage on social media, leading to policy discussions about transit security, fare enforcement, which, for those that don't know, is the job title given to staff who patrol different forms of public transport, issuing penalty fares to passengers who travel without a valid ticket or without the correct ticket. I really can't believe it. That if this is true, this is infuriating. And gaps in the criminal justice and mental health systems. Which, no surprise there, people have been talking about the gaps in the criminal justice and mental health systems for basically years, and there's not really much of a proper plan that's set in place to address any of these issues. So, this is the image of what happened before Zarutska was killed, and this is a Google Maps of where the events took place. We got the location, East-West Boulevard. The coordinates, I don't know why the coordinates are there. It says that the attack took place on August 22nd, 2025 at 9:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We know that she got stabbed, and the weapon that was used was a foldable pocket knife. We got the victim, Iryna Zarutska, accused DeCarlos Brown Jr., and he's actually facing 2 charges right now. One that is a state charge for first-degree murder, and a federal charge, which is terrorist attacks and other violence against mass transportation systems, which I didn't know was a federal crime. Well, good thing I've never really attended any sort of mass transportation system outside of school, so, but still, hey. Okay, let's take a look at the background of who Iryna Zarutska and DeCarlos Brown Jr. were. Iryna Zarutska, who is Ukrainian, was born in Kiev, Ukraine, and was 23 years old when she died. Zarutska studied at Synergy College in Kiev and earned a degree in art and restoration. Following the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the Zarutska family moved from their apartment to a small bomb shelter where they lived for months. Iryna, her mother, her sister, and her younger brother immigrated to the United States in 2022. Her father remained in Ukraine as laws prevented men between the ages of 18 and 60 from leaving the country. Damn, that's pretty harsh. He was unable to attend her funeral in the United States. Now, that is actually very heartbreaking. Imagine your own government not allowing you to attend your own child's funeral because of what happened by someone who is living in the country that your child was living in at the time. I would be freaking furious. That is very unfortunate. In Huntersville, North Carolina, Iryna took various jobs and began learning English. Her boyfriend gave her driving lessons since her family had never owned a car. Zarutska enrolled in college classes and found work at a pizzeria in Charlotte. On the night of the attack, Zarutska had finished a shift there and was commuting home on the Lynx Blue Line, which, yeah, she basically took the train. The 34-year-old suspect, DeCarlos Brown Jr., had been arrested 14 times in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. Think about it. He got arrested 14 times. Like, 1-4. Holy cow. Damn. This dude's been climbing it up for a while. Holy cow. Before the stabbing, with criminal charges dating back to 2007. So he's been committing crimes for 18 years. Holy cow. That long? Oh my god. On April 11, 2014, he was convicted of breaking and entering, so basically trespassing. While on probation, he was arrested for armed robbery. Okay, so he basically stole a bunch of stuff and had a weapon on him at the time, and possession of a firearm by a felon, so basically he wasn't supposed to have a gun at the time. Brown was convicted of armed robbery and incarcerated in state prison from 2015 to September 2020. So he basically served prison for like 5 years, give or take. Wow. Upon release, he initially lived with his family, but his mother told ABC News that he was diagnosed with schizophrenia at this point and displayed violent behavior at home. Wow. Basically, from what I'm seeing, the mother tried her best that he could to get her son under control and hopefully getting him into a better mental state of mind, but it wasn't working out for her. His mother said that she had sought involuntary commitment, but that it was denied. So basically, she was trying to send him to some sort of mental hospital or any place that would help give him treatment, but the system said, nope, 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 we can't do that. And look where we're at. So basically, the system did end up failing. I would say the system ended up failing the perpetrator's mother the most, because she tried, from what I've read, she's actually tried her best to make sure he doesn't do anything else that is stupid, but the system basically decided, the system basically has decided, yay, crime is good, and it's very, very infuriating. The Associated Press reported that involuntary commitments are difficult to obtain unless a court finds this person to be dangerous. Wow. They basically don't even, yes, literally anything can be dangerous, but the fact that they have an extremely strict definition, that is a definition that is so strict that what is classified dangerous to us might not be considered dangerous to them, some criminals will be able to get away with not getting help and being able to do the crimes that they do, and that is not good. North Carolina reduced the capacity of state hospitals in the early 2000s, and the average wait time for a psychiatric bed was 16 days in 2024. After Brown stopped taking psychiatric medication, his mother took him to a homeless shelter. In 2025, he repeatedly called 911 about a man-made material inside him that was controlling his body. Brown was charged with misuse of 911 and released without bond. Wow. So, okay, a few things. First, his mother took him to a homeless shelter. I really, really hope that homeless shelter was safe, because if it wasn't, I think that homeless shelter might have contributed to why he could have committed this crime. I really hope that homeless shelter was safe. Okay, next up, about the 911 call. Obviously, I wish that he didn't have this illness, and and look, let's be real. If you're going to make a 911 call, please do it for emergencies. And it looks like in this case, when he made that 911 call, he was actually begging for help. Maybe not for the right reason, maybe not for the reasons that he thought, but he was basically calling for help. This was basically from what it sounds like, when he called 911, this was a call for mental help. And the 911 issue operator clearly said not only were they not willing to give help, but also they basically charged him. Wow. So basically that right there just creates even more criminals. That is not good. And he would end up being released the next day without bond. Then what was the point of getting him arrested then, if he was just going to be released without bond? the criminal justice system in general is just very confusing, and it's something that I do not have a lot of knowledge about, and I'm willing to admit it. I'm not really smart when it comes to the criminal justice system. I think I know just about enough to where, like, oh, okay, the system sucks, there's no plan, and that's it. Alright, let's talk about the killing. On August 22nd, 2025, the perpetrator spent several hours riding on the Lynx Blue Line, during which surveillance footage showed him making unusual movements and laughing to himself. Yeah, when I read that first sentence, I was like, yeah, there was no way I would have noticed. Because the unusual movements, I probably would have ignored it, and the laughing to himself, sometimes people do that, just maybe it's like for whatever reason, maybe you're like staring at your phone, or maybe you're laughing about something, about some joke you made, or some joke you heard, laughing at himself. When you read that first sentence alone, when I read that first sentence, I would never have guessed that he would have killed anyone just from that first sentence. So let's keep reading. At 8:18 p.m., he was passed by two Charlotte Area Transit System, or known as CATS, security officials, but did not interact with them. So basically, there was security there, and the crime still happened. Wow, the security measures are very, very bad, and it's not the first time that's happened, and especially after reading about the whole Charlie Kirk murder, it really cemented my belief further that our security systems that we have right now are a complete failure and have been a complete failure for years. So let's keep reading. Local Charlotte television channel WBTV later quoted authorities as saying that the perpetrator did not have a ticket to ride the train. Did you know beforehand, or did you know afterwards? Either way, this is pretty bad. If you didn't know beforehand, then that means you guys didn't do your job. And if he did have, and if he didn't, and if you knew that he didn't have a ticket and you let him on anyways, wow, that's also a failure on your part, because you just let danger into your train station. Look, I know some people will propose, like, we need better training, or we need more people to secure the train, or so on and so forth. If these have been our solution, that's what people have been proposing for years and years and years, and I'm pretty sure a good amount of this has already been in place, and these events are still happening. What that tells me is that the ideas that we have right now, like I said, I know I'm saying I'm being a parrot here, but it tells me that whatever solutions that we have on the table right now, they're not effective. And what sucks is that I don't think people are concerned about effective security measures. People are not concerned about effectiveness. People are just concerned about theater and doing something just for the sake of doing it and making us feel safe, but instead of actually being concerned about what will actually make us safe. And I think we will end up seeing more events like what happened to Iryna Zarutska, like what happened to Charlie Kirk, like what happened to Donald Trump when somebody attempted to assassinate him, like the Democrat in Minnesota who and her husband were killed by some right-wing lunatic. It's None of this is ever going to end for as long as we don't have a plan to fix it, and I don't think we have a plan to fix it at this time. So let's keep reading. At 9:46 p.m. that evening, Zarutska boarded the Lynx Blue at the Scallybark station at Charlotte's South End neighborhood. Surveillance footage showed Zarutska sitting in front of the perpetrator, who was already seated on the train. 4 minutes after Zarutska boarded, the perpetrator pulled a pocket knife from his hoodie and stabbed Zarutska 3 times from behind, including at least once on the neck. Zarutska remained conscious or semi-conscious for nearly a minute before bleeding out and collapsing on the floor. No security personnel were present in the train car, though there were officers on board the train one car ahead. Wow. Okay, so basically this might also be a failure on the train management's part for not properly distributing the security units that they have onto each section of the train to make sure that there's no sus shit going on. Wow, it just keeps getting worse. The more I read this, there's more people to blame. And it's really infuriating. At least 4 other people were sitting near Zarutska during the stabbing, and passengers provided assistance after she collapsed on the floor. Now, I'm not going to judge the bystanders on this one. Maybe some might have not noticed, which is really not good. And there might have been some that might have been like too scared because they didn't want to get stabbed. Now that I can understand, because you value your own life and you can't save other people's lives if you can't save yourself. So I can understand that aspect. So, and I wouldn't hold it against these bystanders for that reason. Zarutska became quote-unquote unresponsive shortly after the stabbing and was pronounced dead at the scene. A Federal Bureau of Investigation affidavit stated that she had one stab wound in the middle of her neck and a small cut on her left knee. After the attack, the perpetrator is reported to have said, quote-unquote, "I got that white girl." Wow! 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 That is pretty messed up from the perpetrator. What the fuck? Brown exited the train 2 minutes following the stabbing and was arrested by police on the platform. So basically, the police were very, very quick to respond. I'm not sure if anyone called the cops like before the stabbing or afterwards. So, yeah, he was transported for treatment for a hand wound. Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department, CMPD, named Brown as the suspect and did not disclose the motive for an attack. Wow. So basically, from what I'm seeing here, the police came in really quick. I'm not sure if the police were called like before or after the stabbing, but if they were called before the stabbing, then clearly the officers did not make it in time. If they were called like after the stabbing, holy crap, they were fast, but not fast enough. So, with that being said, there are actually a few YouTube videos and articles that I would like to show you all. Some going into like more detail as to what happened, while others talk about, one news article that I would like to go through at the end of this episode talks about what the state legislature is going to be doing to, I guess, maybe try to stop more events like this. So with that being said, let me pull up something else and let me pull up a YouTube video for you guys. Hold on. Alright, this first video is going to be called "The System Failed Her, the Iryna Zarutska Story." So, and of course I will be putting links in the description below so that way you all can check it out for yourselves. So, with that being said, let's watch.
A horrific murder on a light rail train in North Carolina, caught on camera. Now local officials are facing tough questions about why the suspect was still on the street.
In the seat behind her is 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown. Watch as he slowly opens a pocket knife, then stands and without warning plunges the knife into his victim.
And this wasn't some random man with no past. He had 14 prior arrests before this attack ever happened. And somehow he was still free until the day he crossed paths with that young woman on that train.
This beautiful face and seeing her balled up, looking around, not realizing somebody had attacked her, that was so horrible.
Now I want to talk about the story of 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Iryna Zarutska, who tragically lost her life in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's a heartbreaking case that's made headlines for many reasons, but the biggest one is how it exposes just how flawed the system really is. Iryna Zarutska was a beautiful young Ukrainian woman, just 23 years old. Loved by many, she had a warm, creative spirit.
2000, damn. I'm only older than her by a year. That's insane.
That she poured into the people around her. She studied art and restoration in Kiev, Ukraine.
Oh yeah, and by the way, the narrator was actually talking about all the positive traits that were being described about her. When it comes to like murder victims in general, there's always going to be people saying that this murder victim had all these positive traits, that they were like a shining bright in the world, and they brought happiness and joy and all these other positive traits. People will always say about all these positive traits whenever somebody dies. And I understand, and of course we never talk about the negative because, well, it would be insensitive. But when you hear like so many news stories about people being about all the positive traits of who murder victims were, or who people who died were, you end up like getting numb to you start getting numb about hearing the positive traits about who people were, and you'd be like, whatever. I hate saying this, and unfortunately, it's just life. And I really wish I had more of a heart on this, but I don't. I'm just numb because I hear this like so much, and it's just, you're like, all right, and yet just end up getting used to it. It's not that we don't feel bad. Of course we do. It's not that I don't feel bad. Of course I do feel bad. I'm just so used to it. It's just, what do you do? It's not like I can just. It's not like it'll have that same empathy. Like, you're not going to be able to, when the first time you hear about something about, like, the first time when you hear the positive traits about somebody who died, you're like, oh, okay. But when you hear about, as you go on, as you get older and you hear more stories about it, you're like, oh, okay. Because you're going to be hearing that same story over and over and over again. Like, they were this, they were awesome. And you're like, and just pure numbness. So that's just what I wanted to say about that, and let me continue playing the video.
The capital of the country, and her family described her as radiant, with a smile that could light up a room. In August 2022, 6 months after Russia's invasion, she left Ukraine with her mother, sister, and brother, searching for safety and a future.
Oh, and on an unrelated note, when it comes to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we should not be funding this at all. I'm very disappointed with the Trump administration for basically saying we need to pull more money into Ukraine or NATO, whatever. We should not be getting involved, just like how we should not be getting involved in Palestine or Greenland or the Panama Canal, or we shouldn't have even bombed Iran in the first place, because now our state's even more of a dangerous place for nuclear destruction. I apologize for the unrelated note, but hearing the Russian invasion of Ukraine, it made me think foreign policy, and I'm pissed.
That's how she ended up in North Carolina, where she began building a new life. She enrolled at community college with dreams of becoming a veterinary assistant. In the meantime, she often cared for neighbors' pets, walking them around the neighborhood, always smiling, always spreading light. She worked in Charlotte's South End and was slowly moving towards independence, even learning how to drive. But for now, she still relied on public transportation to get around. And it was there on the train where the story takes a tragic ending. On the night of August 22nd, roughly 3 weeks ago, Iryna boarded the Blue Line train in Charlotte after finishing her shift at a local pizza spot. She wore khaki pants, a dark shirt, and had her blonde hair tucked under her work cap. She sat down, focused on her phone like so many of us do. What she didn't, however, know was that the man sitting right behind her should have never been there in the first place. That man was 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown. For a few minutes, nothing happened. He sat there behind her, silent, staring out the window. Then in one quick, unprovoked motion, he pulled out a pocket knife, stood up, and swung over the seat. Iryna clutched her throat and face, not even realizing that her life had just been cut short. Within seconds, she collapsed to the ground and died. 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown was arrested minutes later and charged with first-degree murder. But this wasn't some random man out of nowhere. His criminal history stretched back nearly 2 decades, and court records show that his first arrest was in 2007, and over the years he racked up over 14 arrests, including armed robbery, felony larceny, and breaking and entering. And in 2014, he robbed a man at gunpoint and served more than 5 years in prison. And after his release, things
5 years in prison. This dude actually served like 5 years in prison. And when he was not in prison, he was doing crimes and he was basically doing, whenever he wasn't in prison, he basically did crimes outside of it. And basically he's too committed. That's all he knows, from what it looks like.
only spiraled, and by 2022, he was assaulting his own sister. But she dropped the charges out of concern for his mental health, and in 2024 and 2025, he was arrested multiple times for misusing 911 calls.
He assaulted his own sister? Oh my god.
During one arrest, he told officers he believed a man-made material was controlling when he ate, walked, and talked. And just 3 weeks before Iryna's death, a judge ordered a forensic evaluation, but still, this guy was still free to board that train and free to take that young woman's life. Even his own family had raised alarms, and his mother actually said that she tried to have him placed in a long-term psychiatric facility, but legally she couldn't really do much because she wasn't his guardian. His sister Tracy described how after he came home in 2020, he wasn't the same person anymore. He struggled to hold conversations, couldn't keep a job, and was often violent. And
Oh my god, I hate these ads. I apologize. I'm gonna need to pause the video. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry, guys.
was often violent. And then, like we stated in 2022, he even attacked his own flesh and blood. And his sister said that he often believed that the government had planted a chip inside of him. And the worst part about this is,
Wow. So, I guess from the sounds of it, he might have also been a conspiracy theorist as well. Maybe.
that after the stabbing, this man told his sister that he attacked Iryna because she was reading his mind. So obviously this man was not right in the head. He should have never been on that train. He should have either been in prison or inside a facility actually getting professional help. But then again, it makes you wonder, does rehabilitation even work for people like this? I'm not so
And his concerns are very valid. I mean, sometimes rehabilitation works for some people, sometimes it doesn't. It really does just depend on the person.
sure, honestly. I would like to think that everybody can be helped, but the reality is that some people are just so far gone to the point where they can't be saved. Now, when he was arrested for misusing 911 earlier this year, instead of being held, Magistrate Judge Teresa Stokes let him go on a simple promise to come back to court. Like, we're talking no bail, no supervision, nothing. After the stabbing, her decision was blasted as a failure to protect the public, and the judge has faced serious scrutiny, like she should. But according to the Charlotte Observer, she was actually following North Carolina's law and their bail policy, which makes release without bond routine for non-violent misdemeanors. But the strange part is that, while the charges he faced at the time were considered non-violent, his record clearly showed a violent past. And that has me questioning, and probably you questioning, what's even the point of these so-called laws if they don't actually protect the public? Very good question. Now, this story, along with the Charlie Kirk assassination, have been two of the most spoken about tragedies in the last week. Obviously, the public is furious about the death of this young woman, and I think there's something to be said about why stories like this seem to be happening more often and often. Because even though we have a justice system, you start to wonder, how well is it actually working? And why do we keep hearing about innocent people getting killed by people who should have already been locked up in the first place? And the question a lot of people are asking, and this is something that's kind of like in my head, right? Which is, why does it always feel like criminals get protected while the public gets left vulnerable? Now, in this case, Brown was clearly mentally ill, and I think that's important to stress, because part of why he was the way he wasn't entirely his fault. But at the same time, the system knew he had these issues, and instead of getting him real help, they just let him walk free. But I've also seen way too much sympathy for this killer. Some people talk like he had no control over what happened, and that's just not really true, okay? Because there's plenty of people dealing with the same exact mental issues, even in worse situations, and they're not out here stabbing innocent people on trains. That's a fact. We also can't ignore his past. This man wasn't just battling schizophrenia. This was someone with a long record of violent crimes. So yes, mental illness played a role, but this wasn't some random accident. I mean, it was years of violence, ignored red flags, and a system that failed to keep the public safe. But most importantly of all, this young woman. And I also want to stress this, I don't think this story should be turned into some black versus white narrative, because at the end of the day, this was another evil man taking the life of an innocent young woman. That's what matters here. So instead of getting caught up in labels, let's focus on how tragedies like this can actually be prevented. That means asking why violent offenders and people with a clear mental health crisis keep slipping through the cracks.
Yeah, but I want to pause real quick. I didn't think about this as a race issue, but I'm glad he mentioned that, because there are going to be some people who will unfortunately turn this issue into basically a race war debate issue, so that they can instigate a race war, a culture war issue, also that they can ignore about the real issues that are basically going on in North Carolina and across the country and the world. And unfortunately, those people are scum.
Why judges, laws, and policies are protecting the wrong people, and why it always takes an innocent life being lost before anyone starts paying attention. Another conversation that needs to be had is why it took so long for mainstream media to cover this story. So this happened on August 22nd, this unfortunate tragedy, but the story didn't really blow up until like around 2 weeks ago. I remember hearing about it on August 25th, around 72 hours after that happened, and I was shocked to see how few outlets were covering it at the time. It felt like the story was being suppressed, and I think there's one major reason for that. One, I haven't
Yeah, what he is saying is 100% true. The story was suppressed, and I have heard comments from multiple social media sites on this as well. And yeah, it really sucks that this story was suppressed. And really, people should be more aware about what happened to her. And justice for Iryna. Alright, let me play.
Really seen too many people touch on. So Iryna wasn't a white American woman. She was a Ukrainian refugee. And in the eyes of the media, that doesn't grab the same level of sympathy or attention, or so they thought. I mean, we've seen the stories and the patterns before, right? The truth is, the stories that blow up involving women getting hurt in some type of way are usually about white American women. And I want you to take a look at the differences between the massive Gabby Petito case or even Shanquelle Robinson. These are two stories that eventually blew up, but at the same time, it proves that media coverage isn't about justice, it's about what they can package and sell. Now in this case, they had no choice but to cover it once the video spread, which is why in the past few days, this story has been everywhere, right alongside the death of Charlie Kirk. It's crazy to think that this woman fled a war-torn Ukraine looking for safety, only to end up losing her life on the train in the very country she thought would be safer. America's not.
Oh yeah, and I want to mention something that he mentioned. I want to say something about something that he mentioned before. It is really sad that people only pay attention about tragic murders, pay attention to change only after a tragic murder takes place, and it really, really sucks. We as humans are not really a proactive species. We are more of a reactive species. And how do we really become proactive? Honestly, I don't know. We can all try to claim to be proactive or try to say some stuff about wanting to be quote unquote proactive and say some stuff that sound proactive, but really the commitment to being proactive is going to be very tough, and being proactive does take a commitment.
Not really safe though, I think we all can agree. If you can't even get on public transportation without wondering if something might happen to you, what kind of life is that? And the truth is, women already know this feeling all too well. Walking home after a night out, riding a bus, even just existing in public, there's always that thought in the back of your head, in the back of a woman's head, which is, what if something happens to me? Between the random acts of violence, school shootings, and the crime that pops up in every major city, safety in America is just not guaranteed. It's honestly a luxury. You can really see it in the contrast in places like Europe. Like a few days ago, I came home from Berlin and I was walking around at 4 in the morning by myself, not a care in the world, headphones on, just chilling. And I even saw groups of women walking alone, even women by themselves, just walking alone in the city. Not once did I feel unsafe. Let's just say try doing that in most major American cities and you'd be looking over your shoulder every 2 seconds, right? Honestly, I tried that in LA one time and I seen a Dodge Durango driving real slow and I thought that was...
Oh, come on. Another ad? Again, I'm so sorry about the ads.
My time to go, okay? So we ain't doing that again, okay? That was a mistake. But all, jokes aside, right? Like this story is really messed up, honestly. Like it really messed me up, especially seeing that video of the young woman Iryna covering her face, like not even realizing that was the last moment she'd be alive. Like it was horrible to see that video. I don't ever want to see that shit again. Yo, we have to stop letting criminals walk free when so many lives are being destroyed because of it. And the truth is, the system hasn't just failed once. It's failed over and over again at every level, from the judges to the lawmakers to the policies that prioritize technicalities over public safety. Like it needs to stop. The people who let this man out need to be held accountable as well, because when you ignore violent pasts, when you dismiss red flags,
and unfortunately, it's very unlikely that they'll be held accountable. And if they do, it's just going to be a slap on the wrist.
When you put procedure over protecting innocent lives, this is the result. A young woman who fled a war-torn country ends up dying on a train in America because of decisions that should have never been made. And honestly, the system that let him walk free is just as guilty as he is. We need people in power to step up and finally do the right thing, which is keep dangerous criminals where they need to be. Because if not, this cycle will keep repeating itself. More innocent lives, especially women and children, will keep on losing their lives. Families will be shattered, all because of the system that chose to protect the wrong people. To anyone listening, can I ask you a question? Like, what can be done about things like this? Because the way I look at it is the only solution is be harsher on violent criminals. But maybe there's something that I'm missing, and of course, like, I'm open to hearing what you have to say. So please let me know in the comment section below. I would really appreciate it. Rest in peace to Iryna Zarutska. Such a tragic story, man. Like, such a tragic story. And I just feel like something needs to be done and something needs to change within the system, because this is becoming way too common. But I'm curious what you guys think about this story. Drop a like for the algorithm, comment, subscribe if you're new. I'll catch you guys in the comment section below. Most importantly of all, I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace. Rest in peace.
All right, that's it for the video. For this specific video, I'm gonna stop presenting now. And yeah, I hope you all had a better understanding of what happened to Iryna Zarutska. The more that I learn about this the more that I learn about this event, the more I learned about how much the system has failed her and basically failed all of us. The more people that we can blame, the more people that I would like to see get blamed for causing this to happen, and it's really, really sucks. So next up, I'm going to be reading a New York Post article on this issue. There we go. Let's see if I can pull it up. Okay, here we go. Horrid video of Ukrainian refugee Iryna Zarutska's slaughter on Charlotte train is met with deafening silence from Dem leaders media. Okay, yeah, basically this is a partisan article, but nonetheless, we're going to read it together. Liberal media and politicians have been accused of staying silent on the savage murder of a young Ukrainian refugee on a North Carolina train. This is basically they're basically just riding a massive wave of rage that people were not reporting on this story when they should. So, yeah. After a career criminal with no fewer than 14 arrests was charged with her murder, Iryna Zarutska was stabbed to death on a light rail train in Charlotte, North Carolina, with horrifying surveillance footage showing the moment of the unsuspecting young woman was brutally attacked. DeCarlos Brown Jr., 35, is allegedly shown pulling out a pocket knife and getting out of his seat behind Zarutska before the video cuts as he prepares to plunge the blade into her. Footage shared by police shows. Zarutska is totally unaware of her killer behind her, fiddling with her phone as Brown allegedly unfolds the knife and prepares to attack. After the killing, the attacker can be seen wandering through the Lynx Blue Line train, dripping blood across the floor as he carries the weapon. Bystanders barely seem to notice that a young woman has just been knifed to death right behind them. Wow. 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 The suspect takes off his bloody hoodie and then calmly waits for the train to pull into the station before exiting. But in the wake of the monstrous killing, which took place on August 22nd, mainstream outlets and politicians have largely stayed silent. Charlotte's Democratic mayor even thanked publications that chose to keep the video from the public. Wow. 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 Obviously, this is a right-wing news source, so maybe they're not reliable. But if this is true, which, hey, it could be, that we are talking about maybe a corrupt leader. I don't know. But if this is true, oh my God. That's pretty bad. And, this is not the first time I've heard about, people trying to keep, footage of the incident off the public. This is not the first time someone has tried to make sure that the footage of an incident is not shown in public. For those that don't know, I actually interviewed Rob Yates, who was my first guest ever on the Political Freedom Fighters podcast, and he talked about the incident, about what happened to some guy named Josh and his dog Sunshine, and their involvement with the cops, and how the cops were basically being abusive, and those police have decided to not show that footage in public either, and it's really heartbreaking. I will certainly be sending links to basically Rob Yates, to my interview with Rob Yates, and my episode on the Charlie Kirk murder in the description below, just for more context in case you're all unaware about those instances as well. So with that being said, God freaking damn it. Alright, I am so sorry once again. Oh my God. It has been very tough to make this video because I keep getting interrupted. So anyways, I need to finish this. The video of the heartbreaking attack that took Iryna Zarutska's life is now public. I want to thank our media partners and community members who have chosen not to repost or share the footage out of respect for Iryna's family, wrote Mayor Villalz in a post on X on Saturday. But her statement drew outrage from many, including Republican members of Congress from the Tar Heel state. The mayor's refusal to condemn senseless, horrific, and preventable violence is as telling as it is despicable. Violent criminals, regardless of who they are or what they look like, need to be in jail, wrote Representative Brad Knott, Republican in North Carolina, in response to Lyles's post. Lyles's office did not respond immediately to requests for comment. Others pointed to a broader nationwide issue of kid glove responses to career criminals. The violence in Charlotte is a microcosm of a national epidemic. Americans deserve better than Democrats' soft on crime policies, wrote Representative Mark Harris, who is a Republican in North Carolina. All right, here's how I feel about the politicians response to the entire thing. They are all just doing theatrics. This is all basically just a grift to make themselves feel good and make them sound like they're actually doing something, but really, they're not really doing anything to stop it. They're just trying to make themselves feel good and hype up their bases and be like, yeah, we are morally superior than you. No, you're not. No, you're not. Charlotte City Council. Oh, yeah, before I finish reading, politicians always politicize every tragic event just to hype up their own base and make it seem like they're doing good, like they're the right people, they're the good guys. Like, really? You're really gonna politicize this in your favor? And you'll wonder why I vote third party or independent? And yet you still don't understand why I'm a third partyist? Democrats and Republicans? Really? I'm sorry. Anyways, let's continue reading. Charlotte City Council candidate Edwin B. Peacock posted a video of his nighttime ride on board a light rail train in Charlotte as he called for a crackdown on public transit crime. A week ago, 23-year-old Iryna Zarutska was brutally killed on Charlotte's light rail. Her death is a tragedy we cannot ignore. Who's riding without paying? Are they the ones causing problems? We need answers. The former mayor of Matthews, NC, a suburb of Charlotte, responded, also calling out safety concerns on the city's public transit. I'm deeply disappointed in what's been happening in the loss of focus on making the light rail welcoming and safe for travelers. It's only going to get worse until the current MTC and, quite frankly, the city of Charlotte gets serious addressing the root cause, wrote Jim Taylor in response to Peacock's original post. Former Doge Secretary Elon Musk called out what he said was a lack of coverage of the killing by mainstream media, resharing a post counting how many articles the outlets had written about the stabbing, along with the comment 0. The alleged murder of a white woman by a black man also drew many responses from the far right. No surprise there. At the same time, those who knew Zarutska have spoken of their horror that a young woman who escaped the war in her country in 2022 could have met such a sickening end in the United States. Zarutska was still wearing her work uniform, that's true, from Zappetti's Pizza, a Charlotte restaurant, when she was attacked. The pizzeria paid an emotional tribute to her in the wake of her death. Recently, Zappetti's family suffered a tremendous loss. We lost not only an incredible employee, but a true friend. Our dear Iryna left this world far too soon, and our hearts are heavy with grief, the restaurant wrote in a statement on Instagram. Since her passing, we have kept a candle burning in her memory, a small reminder of the warmth, kindness, and light that she brought into our lives every single day. Brown, who is homeless, had more than a dozen convictions dating back to 2014. Court records seen by the Post show. He served 5 years for. Okay, basically, it talks about DeCarlos Brown's criminal record that we've already gone over. And yeah, hold on, let me exit this out. And there's also even a video about. And I'm going to show you guys the footage on what happened to Iryna Zarutska. I will warn you that this is going to be a little graphic. So I even got like a notification from YouTube before like the video shows, like, understand that the video is going to be graphic, and I press I understand, and you get the idea. Basically, it's going to be horrible, and for those of you that are like very sensitive to blood and gore and all that, this might not be for you. So feel free to like hop out and leave for just a bit while the rest of so that you don't get yourself sick or whatever, or hopefully and not be horrified. You get the idea. So for the rest of us, let's play the video right now.
She was there for the first time. We are hearing from a commuter on board the train.
Okay, I'm not going to lie. When I first saw this video, I thought she was the perpetrator. Because of the hair. It's mainly because of the hair. But yeah, I know that this is just a bystander.
When a refugee from Ukraine was stabbed to death. In an Inside Edition exclusive, she says she's so traumatized, she never wants to get on a train again. She's coming forward as many are asking what the other passengers did to help. Ann Ricagliano has our report. And again, we want to warn you, this video is upsetting.
Did anyone come to her aid? There's more fallout today over the horrific murder of 23-year-old Iryna Zarutska on a train. Fellow passengers don't seem to realize how badly hurt Iryna is. Surveillance video shows her collapse to the floor. She's almost out of sight. After the murder, accused killer DeCarlos Brown can be seen stalking the rail car, mumbling to himself, his knife dripping with blood. He's bleeding from a cut hand. Horrified passengers try to get out of his way. When Brown gets off the train, other passengers can be seen running to help Iryna. Takara Howard was sitting several seats away. Do you think people should have helped her?
I really do think people should have helped her. I think a lot of them didn't know what to do in that situation. I think a lot of them was shocked.
The shocking slaying has touched a nerve with male model John Rudat, who suffered a slashed face when he tried to help two women hassled on a train while on vacation in Germany.
And that right there is why more people don't jump to help, because sometimes when you try to help, something like this happens and it's very scary and you could die from it, and it's really heartbreaking.
Germany.
If I would have been there, my first priority would have been her. She was obviously losing blood.
Do you think they were scared for their own lives?
I think they were scared for their own lives, and that's completely understandable. She was scared, holding herself, and then slumped over unconscious, and they just let her lie there.
Meanwhile, DeCarlos Brown's sister Tracy confronted her brother during a jailhouse visit, posing the question everyone is asking.
She's from the Ukraine, so I'm just trying to understand, out of all people, why her?
Brown, a schizophrenic, blames voices controlling him.
I don't have nothing. They just lashed out on her. That's what happened.
And Iryna's family is breaking their silence for the first time, saying in a statement, Iryna came here to find peace and safety, and instead her life was stolen from her in the most horrific way. No family should have to go through this.
All right, that's it for the video. And yeah, basically, the footage of this is very horrifying. And a lot of people basically did nothing. And a lot of them were scared for their own safety. That's fine. I still think somebody should have at least tried to help. At least someone, anyone. So, I still think there should have been someone who... There still should have been someone to... You got the idea. I still think someone should have came to her defense. And I accidentally turned off my camera. Crap. So with that being said, I'm going to finish reading this Wikipedia article before I show you one last news article about how about a new law that was being passed in honor of Iryna Zarutska. But anyways, legal proceedings. Following Brown's arrest, a judge ordered a 60-day psychological evaluation at a local hospital. On September 15, 2025, Brown was indicted by a grand jury. He was charged with first-degree murder in North Carolina State Court and with committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system in federal court. He's being held at the Mecklenburg County Detention Center without bond. An investigation remains ongoing, with CMPD's homicide unit encouraging the public to provide any relevant information. Reactions. Alright, let's take a look at the reactions. Zarutska's death raised concerns about the safety of Charlotte's Lynx Blue Line. Charlotte City Council member Edwin Peacock III stressed fragile public trust and urged CATS and CMPD to review security. CATS confirmed the train operator followed protocol, holding the train until police arrived. On September 5th, 2025, so that might explain why the police were able to capture the perpetrator almost immediately. On September 5th, 2025, CATS released surveillance video of the stabbing. Following the killing, local officials and the district attorney publicly discussed gaps in Mecklenburg County's mental health and justice systems, using the case as an example in debates over how courts handle defendants with serious mental illness. Mayor V. Lyles called the killing senseless and tragic and urged respect for the victim's family as the investigation continued. Multiple Charlotte City Council officials and candidates in the 2025 mayoral election called for greater action to ensure safety in public transit. Dimple Ajmera, another member of Charlotte City Council, said of the crime, Clearly, our current safety policies are not enough, and expressed concern that fear of crime in the transportation system might affect an upcoming referendum to expand the city's light rail system. And as far as I'm aware, Rob Yates did also submit a comment on the Iryna Zarutska case, and I'll link that as well in case you all want to check it out for yourselves. Katz said it would seek to increase fair inspections, install new ticket validators, and expand security staffing on trains and platforms. It all sounds nice. Whether or not it's going to work, we'll have to wait and see, because I'm very skeptical of this. Katz, I already read this sentence. On September 22nd, Charlotte City Council agreed to expand the scope of Professional Police Services LLC, a private security contractor appointed to carry out safety monitoring on the Lynx Blue Line, to include sidewalks and other areas adjacent to transit centers. At a state level, North Carolina Governor Josh Stein called for more cops on the beat. So basically, Josh Stein's answer is, more cops! We need more cops! We need more cops. Just having more cops alone isn't going to work unless you got a plan. And even then, some people are going to have a massive problem with adding more cops, specifically progressives and libertarians, because more cops means an expansive police state. And we've seen what happens to a police state when it comes to ballot access issues, and that's very, very concerning. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Oh shoot, hang on. For the state legislature to pass a law enforcement package to address vacancies, and for review of the pretrial system. State lawmakers considered a criminal law reform bill in the North Carolina General Assembly on September 22nd. The amended House Bill 307, dubbed Iryna's Law, set out proposals including removing cashless bail for certain offenses, defining a category of violent offenses for which a judge or magistrate would be required to impose conditions for pretrial release such as GPS monitoring, establishing a protocol for requiring court officials to order mental health evaluations, requiring appeals against death sentences to be heard by the end of 2027, establishing that the victim using transportation at the time of the crime as an aggravating factor when seeking the death penalty, directing the North Carolina Department of Adult Corrections to identify another means of carrying out death sentences, even if lethal injection was declared unconstitutional or not possible due to the drugs being unavailable. The bill was passed by the NC Senate on September 22nd and the NC House of Representatives on September 23rd, going to Stein for approval. President pro tempore of the NC Senate, Phil Berger, also stated that he would seek to revive capital punishment in North Carolina with no executions having taken place since 2006. Again, another mention about the death penalty, and when it comes to Phil Berger, he is one of the people that I do not trust at all, given their previous issues, the previous issues with him in regards to ballot access. I don't trust Phil Berger at all. He's one of the people that I don't trust, and I honestly don't believe him at all. So I would be severely cautious on that. Several Republican members of the North Carolina House of Representatives signed an open letter demanding the removal of the state court magistrate judge who released the suspect on his own recognizance following his arrest after a misdemeanor earlier in 2025. The killing garnered national attention in the United States, particularly from right-wing political commentators, and was described by the Charlotte Observer as having become politicized. Conservative commentators accused mainstream media of not covering the Charlotte killing, which involved a white victim and a black suspect, with the same intensity as they did in the killing of Jordan Neely case, where the situation was opposite. U.S. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy publicly blamed public transit and Charlotte City Council officials for the killing, and Elon Musk criticized judges and district attorneys for allowing criminals to roam free. Speaking at the Museum of the Bible on September 8th, President Donald Trump called the attacker a madman and lunatic and said that when you have horrible killings, you have to take horrible actions, and the actions that we take are nothing, before blaming local officials in places like Chicago for failing to stop crime and denounced cashless bail. Okay, so basically referencing Chicago, it almost feels like a deflector's stance. On the same day, the White House released a statement criticizing North Carolina's Democrat politicians, prosecutors, and judges for prioritizing woke agendas that fail to protect our citizens. On September 9th, the White House released a video in which Trump said that Zarutska was slaughtered by a deranged monster. On September 24th, Vice President J.D. Vance discussed the killing in a visit to Concord, North Carolina, blaming it on soft-on-crime policies and stating he was quote-unquote open to deploy the NC National Guard to Charlotte if requested by Governor Stein and Mayor Lyles. Look, I don't know much about the National Guard, so please tell me your opinions about the National Guard. Should the National Guard be sent to Charlotte? Should it not? Let me know. Where was I? Okay, yeah. The U.S. House Committee on the Judiciary scheduled to hold a field hearing in Charlotte on September 29 on safety in public transit systems and the treatment of repeat offenders. I'm sorry. Sorry, something's in my eye. The case received international coverage, including in Ukraine, with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, stating it was, quote-unquote, in constant contact, end quote, with investigators. Okay. Addressing the United Nations General Assembly on September 24th, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky paid tribute to Zarutska. In the United Kingdom, The Times noted that the case had, quote-unquote, fueled a debate about crime rates in the United States, end quote, while the Daily Telegraph noted the case has, quote-unquote, triggered uproar over crime in the U.S., end quote. The fact that Volodymyr Zelensky would not let Zarutska's father go to the United States to see her daughter's funeral, damn. I don't know how to feel. Come on, Zelensky. Come on. He couldn't do a solid favor for him? Come on, Zelensky. Anyways, memorials. On August 31st, 2025, a candlelight vigil in Charlotte honored Zarutska and other recent victims of transit-related violence. NC officials also announced a candlelight vigil to mark 30 days after her death, scheduled for September 22nd at the East-West Boulevard station. Her family elected to bury Zarutska in the United States. Zarutska's death inspired numerous murals across the United States for which funds have been raised. In September 25, American rapper DaBaby released the song Save Me, dedicated to Zarutska, with a video reenacting the event but with DaBaby's saving Zarutska. Yeah, I'm not going to play the music video here because in the last episode I actually did end up getting a copyright claim for a couple of videos, one which included the Tom McDonald song dedicated to Charlie Kirk, so I'm not going to be showing you that, but I will be showing you, however, one more article in response to Iryna's murder and more detail onto the legislation called Iryna's Law that was passed by the NC General Assembly. Let's get started. North Carolina has passed a bill in the wake of Iryna Zarutska's fatal stabbing to curb crime in the United States. Time will only tell if this will work. House Bill 307, also known as Iryna's Law, seeks to change pretrial release conditions for people charged with violent offenses, among other measures. Why it matters: Zarutska, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee, was fatally stabbed on August 22nd while on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina. DeCarlos Brown, 34, has been charged in connection with her. Okay, basically the same details over and over again. Alright, what to know? State Republicans introduced House Bill 307, which the Senate passed on Monday and the House on Tuesday. The bill proposes removing cashless bail. Now, I don't really have much of an opinion on cashless bail. What do you all think? Should cashless bail be kept? Should cashless bail be abolished? Do you think that, I understand that bail can be, extremely expensive, so expensive to the point that only the rich will be able to afford bail while the poor end up suffering. Do you think, cashless bail is good? Do you think cashless bail is bad? I don't have much of an opinion on cashless bail, so that's why I want to ask you guys about that. Anyways, continuing reading, and allowing officials to order mental health evaluations for defendants. It also suggests adding an aggravated sentencing factor to those who offend on public transport. The legislation also includes a measure to revive the death penalty in the state, an amendment that Senate Democrats voted against. The bill passed the House 81-31, so some Democrats did end up voting for this bill. So much mention about the death penalty, and I'm like, wait a minute, doesn't North Carolina already have a death penalty? Hold on, I actually need to look this up. I'm gonna actually look this up right now. Does North Carolina have the death penalty? Yes, I'm aware that the last execution did take place in like 2006, but I'm pretty sure we already have a death penalty. So are we just making the death penalty legaler or something? We're gonna make the death penalty more legal? Look, I don't know why they haven't executed anyone since 2006. I think the death penalty should only be applied in a case-by-case scenario, and I would say I'm a moderate on the death penalty. It really depends on the crime and the person and so on and so forth. So I'm going to keep reading. What people are saying. Matthew Mangino, a former district attorney in Lawrence County, Pennsylvania, told Newsweek, "Unfortunately, this legislation is a knee-jerk reaction to a tragic crime. Reform should be thoughtful and carefully deliberated. Cashless bail is really class bail. Does having enough money to post a cash bail making an accused less dangerous? How about speeding up the death penalty in a state that hasn't carried out an execution in 20 years? It is political theater, not meaningful reform." Look, I'm a martyr on the death penalty, and there are some people who should get the death penalty for being horrible people. With that being said, why the hell would you applaud speeding up the death penalty? Like, why? It makes you sound freaking deranged. Why? That's very sus. It's very sus. And that has always bothered me. Anyways, NC Senate President Phil Berger. Okay. I already, what I can tell that whatever he's going to say is probably going to be some complete grift. So with that being said, let's start reading. Iryna should still be alive. She should be thriving and enjoying her time with her family and friends. We cannot let North Carolina be held hostage by woke, weak-on-crime policies and court officials who are prioritize criminals over justice for victims. Yes, I agree. We should be prioritizing people who are victims of your corrupt actions over you. I agree with that. We are also taking steps to revive the death penalty for those who commit the most heinous crimes. I doubt that. I fully doubt that. House Speaker Destin Hall said, "We will simply not tolerate policies that allow violent offenders back into our streets to commit more crimes and jeopardize public safety." Democratic Senator Mujtaba Mohammed, who introduced an amendment to the bill that would stop lawmakers from using a deceased victim's name, image, or likeness for political gain. It sounds nice, but I don't think it'll do what it says. It sounds nice, but I don't think this bill will do what it's served to do. And that's sadly usually the case in politics, both at the federal, state, and local level. It is what it is. Maybe less so for the local level, but you get the idea. Federal and state level, I would not just willfully, gleefully trust whatever bills that they pass. Said on the Senate floor Tuesday in reference to a video of the stabbing, "It exploits grief for headlines and votes." That is true. President Donald Trump said in a statement earlier this month, "I have seen the horrific video of a beautiful young Ukrainian woman who came to America to escape the vicious war in Ukraine and was innocently riding the metro in Charlotte, North Carolina, where she was brutally ambushed by a mentally deranged lunatic. The perpetrator was a well-known career criminal," that's true, "who had been previously arrested and released on cashless bail in January a total of 14 times. I guess you could say that's true. What the hell was he doing riding the train and walking the streets? Criminals like this need to be locked up." A lot of it need to be blamed on security of the train station, and a whole bunch of other people. Really, the blame should be placed on essentially everyone who basically had a job to protect people and didn't. There's so many people to blame, and it's easier to blame someone, like I said before, but we need to be focused on solutions right now. So, yeah. U.S. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy wrote on X on September 7th, "This monster had a track record longer than a CVS receipt." Damn. Including prison time for robbery with a dangerous weapon, breaking and entering, and larceny. By failing to properly punish him, Charlotte failed Iryna Zarutska and North Carolinians. What happens next? The bill heads to North Carolina Governor Josh Stein, a Democrat who may approve or deny it. A spokesperson for the governor said he was reviewing the measure. Brown's next court appearance is scheduled for October 16th. So, yeah. With that being said, this murder was very horrible. These politicians are basically using it for corrupt gains. I don't think Iryna's law will end up doing much, because I think the politicians are just making this bill just to make themselves look good, and basically, I'm not sure if this is going to work. I hope it works. Don't get me wrong. I really, really hope it works. I don't trust the politicians at all, and really, I am going to be very skeptical about this. So, with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button down below, press subscribe, hit the notification bell if you're new, and feel free to comment whatever you want, so that in case you want me to interact with you. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all later. Peace out. Oh, I'm sorry. Peace out.